for which this is your first CUTR webinar, and welcome back to those of you who have joined us before. We appreciate it. Well, my name is Steve Reich, as Jennifer indicated, and as I went through the CUTR introduction, my role here at the center is to direct a program called Transportation Program Evaluation and Economic Analysis. Let's see, we're having a little trouble loading up our image here. Perhaps that's just my connection. But let me introduce my colleague, who will do a majority of the presentation on the topical area today of tracking the cost of alternative fueled buses in Florida. His name is Alex Kolpikoff, and Alex has been with us here at CUTR for about 9 years. He's the handsome one on the left of your screen. And as I said, Alex has about 9 years of experience in transportation research, working here at the center, and has managed a wide variety of transportation-related projects, ranging from economic impact analysis of transportation investments, as well as developing aviation security rating programs, detailed transportation policy analysis, and has performed for us a lot of quantitative statistical analysis and done econometric modeling. Mr. Kolpikoff holds a Master's of Arts degree in economics from the University of South Florida and a bachelor's degree in business administration from Chazhvash State University in his native Russia. And today's presentation that will be led by Alex, this is entitled Tracking Costs of Alternatively Fueled Buses in Florida. So, Alex, if you're there, I'll turn this over to you.
Thank you for the introduction, Steve, and thank you, Jennifer, as well. Good afternoon to everyone. Today, we're going to talk about the project that involved tracking the costs of alternatively fueled buses in Florida, and we'll start right now. We're having some, I guess, some delay with loading the images, so I'll give a few seconds. All right, this was the project funded through the National Center for Transit Research that is housed here at CUTR, and the client was the Florida Department of Transportation. The original project duration was 18 months, but the project was later extended to 24 months with no additional cost. The budget for this project was $100,000, and there were two main goals for the project. One was establish the recording and reporting mechanism for collecting the data on performance and cost of alternative fuel vehicles in Florida, and the second one was to estimate the cost of modifying transit maintenance facilities to make them suitable for alternative fuel vehicles. A little bit of background on the project should give you a better understanding about the reasons for the analysis. Florida transit agencies have been dealing with volatile fuel prices and changes in regulations regarding the diesel engines and fuels in general for quite some time now. So in an effort to address fuel price uncertainties and environmental concerns, many transit agencies introduced alternative fuel vehicles into their fleets. This happened even as diesel technology saw some significant improvements, such as a switch to ultra-low sulfur diesel and various enhancements in emission control technologies. One technology that we noticed is becoming particularly popular recently is diesel hybrid electric bus. The growth and acquisition of those buses has been helped by the recent funding that was made available through federal economic stimulus, such as the Transit Investment for Greenhouse Gas and Energy Reduction program, TIGR for short, which is part of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. the hybrid buses, as well as other alternative fuel buses, are also funded by traditional transit capital funds. Typically, FDOT funds 50% of non-federal share of bus capital acquisition, and invested a substantial amount of money in those technologies, especially because these advanced technologies are significantly more expensive than the traditional diesel. For example, on average, the alternative fuel buses cost about $150,000 more than regular diesel buses. The major goal for our analysis, as I mentioned earlier, the major goal for introducing the alternative fuel vehicles was to reduce the fuel consumption and decrease the overall operating costs that some agencies hoped that they could realize. However, many agencies not only did not realize the desired efficiency gains, but also saw some escalations in capital and operating costs that created challenges for widespread adoption of the advanced transit technologies. So these are the three major goals for this project. FDOT requested the assistance of CUTR to track and report the life cycle costs of transit buses with alternative fuel technologies, so that they would be able to make more educated policy decisions regarding the capital acquisition. FDOT is also interested in investigating the costs of potential modifications to transit facilities to make them suitable for alternative fuel buses. But most importantly, FDOT would like to establish a process for an ongoing reporting and evaluation of performance data about the benefits and costs of alternative fuel vehicles. So these are the goals of the project. Now, this wasn't the first time that CUTR was involved in evaluating the life cycle costs of alternative fuel transit buses. CUTR was also involved in the development of a bus fuel fleet evaluation tool. We call it Buffett model, which is a spreadsheet model that provides a tool for estimating fleet costs for alternative fuel vehicles at a sketch planning level. The development of that model was also funded by FDOT previously. The evaluations and the estimates of the model are based on the data on thousands of alternative fuel buses all over the United States. Unfortunately, the data behind the model is getting a little stale, so I believe the latest input was in 2007, so it's getting a little bit outdated. So the model can certainly benefit from updating with new data, and especially since there have been significant advancements in alternative fuel technology since then. To obtain the data, CUTR approached the transit agencies directly with data requests, and all fixed route transit agencies were contacted with the data requests. In addition, CUTR also attempted to collect the data on demand response vehicles that operate here in Florida. CUTR attended the Paratransit Maintenance Consortium meeting to inform the operators about the project and trying to foster better cooperation between the agencies and our center in terms of collecting the data. A total of 12 paratransit agencies were contacted with data requests, and we also analyzed and reviewed the data records that are available from the statewide transit vehicle procurement database that's called TRIPS. This is the type of data that was requested. It's the data on the vehicle length, the power plant, the fuel type, date placed in service, what was the vehicle acquisition cost, the mileage life to date, then the life to date fuel usage, the labor costs and parts costs, and so forth. So the data was pretty straightforward. So we thought that this would be pretty easy for the agencies to provide this kind of data, because they certainly do collect this information for their purposes. And the agencies were sent a data template in an Excel file to fill out. That's how we approach this data collection. Now, from the very beginning, it was very hard for us to get a decent response rate. Only 5 fixed route agencies responded to our requests, and none of the paratransit agencies did. It was also very difficult to make agencies report data periodically. We initially wanted to collect the data quarterly, so we can see if there's any changes in costs of operating the alternative fuel vehicles, but unfortunately we could not get the report on a quarterly basis. Then multiple reminders and requests from us and the project manager were unfortunately not successful, so we could not collect the data the way we wanted it. So another problem that we faced was that some agencies treat and report cost categories a little bit differently. For example, some agencies do not report parts and labor costs separately, so they just report them as together as parts and labor. So we needed to be very careful when we interpreted the data so that we could do the apples-to-apples comparison. But despite all these challenges and difficulties, the low response rate, the data that we collected covers about 70% of Florida fixed route transit fleet, so we were pretty happy about that. The following 5 agencies provided cost data on their fleet. I mean, these are the big ones: the Broward County Transit from Broward County, the Gainesville RTS, the Miami-Dade Transit from Miami, Palm Tran from Palm Beach, and Star Metro from Tallahassee. Overall, the data covers over 1,300 vehicles, which, as I said, is about 70% of the fixed route fleet in Florida. I wanted to clarify that agencies were asked to report on the entire fleet. Even if they did not run any alternative fuel vehicles on their fleet, they were still asked to report on their fleet so that we would have a proper basis for comparison for transit fleet operating costs. Here's the fleet composition of Florida transit fleet that the data revealed. The majority of the fixed route transit fleet is diesel, while only 5% of the vehicles were alternative fuel vehicles. 40-foot buses are the most popular among diesel buses. They account for about 88% of the diesel fleet, which is not surprising. I mean, a 40-foot bus is a typical transit bus that you would expect. As for the alternative fuel vehicles in transit fleets, it seems all of them are diesel hybrids, and almost half of all the alternative fuel buses were articulated buses, about 48%, and only 30% of those alternative fuel vehicles were 40-foot buses. Well, the main reason for collecting this data from transit agencies was to be able to perform the comparison between different propulsion technologies. So in this case, we'll compare the traditional diesel with the diesel hybrid buses, as these are the 2 technologies that we have the data for. Well, the data show that hybrid buses are significantly more expensive than diesel, and the comparison looks different for different sizes of buses, but these are the numbers for the 40-foot bus. I mean, you can see that the average acquisition cost for the diesel hybrid is $550,000 compared to the $299,000 for the diesel. Then the fuel economy is marginally better for hybrids. Parts cost per mile and maintenance cost per mile are significantly lower for hybrid buses. It's 11.9 cents the parts cost per mile and 15.3 cents maintenance cost per mile, compared to 21.1 cents and 23.5 cents for diesel. Now, this is the same data in relative terms, in percentage terms, not in actual numbers. So in relative terms, the hybrid buses provide about 2.3% better gas mileage. They also have 45.7% lower parts cost and 34.9% lower maintenance costs than diesel buses. While at the same time, the hybrids are also 84.3% more expensive to purchase than diesel buses. So this is the comparison for 40-foot buses. Now, if you look at the entire fleet of diesel and hybrid buses, regardless of the size, then you'll see that the hybrid buses are on average 5% better on gas mileage compared to diesel. Then the hybrids also provide 57% lower parts cost per mile and 36% lower maintenance cost per mile. But at the same time, they are more than double. They cost more than double compared to diesel. But we also had to account for the age of the bus. It turned out that the hybrid buses are also much more newer than the diesel. The average age of a diesel bus was a little over 6 years versus less than a year for diesel hybrid. So this can explain some of the variation in performance. In addition to data on fixed route buses, we also try to collect relevant data on demand response vehicles. Unfortunately, the data on performance and operating costs of demand response vehicles were not available. So all the data for paratransit vehicles was obtained from the statewide vehicle procurement system. It's called TRIPS. TRIPS database has a lot of useful data on paratransit fleet, including fleet characteristics and vehicle acquisition information, but there are no records on operating costs. So as a result of that, the analysis of paratransit fleet is a little bit limited. The data on paratransit fleet is presented separately for vehicles acquired with and without federal assistance, as they are distinguished like that in the database. So the vehicles acquired with federal assistance are designated as the FTA Section 5310 program, and the one without federal assistance are non-5310. For the vehicles acquired with federal assistance, gasoline fuel were more popular than diesel. There were twice as many gasoline-powered demand response vehicles reported in the database than diesel. In addition, the data also indicated a trend of increasing percentage of gasoline-fueled vehicles in annual acquisitions over the period from 2007 to 2011. For example, if in 2007 the purchases of diesel and gasoline vehicles were split 50-50, in 2011 these purchases were 8-to-1. So for each one gasoline I'm sorry, for each one diesel bus, there were 8 gasoline buses that are purchased. There could be different speculations for the reasons why this happens. So potential explanations could have that there are lower acquisition costs for gasoline vehicles, or that there are some differences in operating and the maintenance costs between the diesel and the gasoline vehicles. But these are just speculations. So there is no solid data to support any of these assumptions. So we don't know why gasoline-powered demand response vehicles are more popular. This is the summary of paratransit fleet acquired with federal assistance. As you can see, there are twice as many gasoline vehicles than diesel. Then the gasoline vehicles are a little bit cheaper. They cost about 1.6% less than diesel. It's $72.5 thousand for gasoline vehicle compared to $73.7 thousand for diesel. Also notice that there is a large unknown category that can include either the fuel of either type. So this can skew the results in any direction. So we have to be we have to recognize that. We have to be very careful how we interpret the data. Now, for the vehicles acquired without federal assistance, well, gasoline vehicles were still more popular than diesel. Well, we also see the same trend of acquiring more gasoline-powered vehicles over the years that was observed for the vehicles with federal assistance. So this similarity in trend for both types of vehicles suggests that the federal assistance is unlikely a determinant factor in the choice of gasoline propulsion versus diesel for paratransit vehicles. So maybe it's just the paratransit operators prefer gasoline vehicles to the diesel vehicles, regardless whether they get the federal assistance or not. So here is the summary of paratransit fleet acquired without federal assistance. Same as with the previous category, there are twice as many gasoline-powered vehicles, and gasoline vehicles are slightly less costly to acquire. They're about 2.5% less expensive than diesel. And overall, this looks very similar to the previous category of vehicles acquired with federal assistance. Now, in terms of vehicle size, vehicles acquired with federal assistance ranged in size from 17 to 31 foot. The sizes, the 22 foot and 23 foot buses are the most popular sizes overall, but there were some differences between the diesel and gasoline vehicles. For diesel vehicles, 23-foot bus was the most popular size. For gasoline vehicles, 22-foot was the most popular. It seemed that larger vehicles are more likely to be diesel rather than gasoline, which is not surprising. That's what you would expect. For paratransit vehicles acquired without federal assistance, the most popular sizes were 23-foot buses and 20-foot buses. And once again, we'll see some differences between in sizes, depending on whether the vehicle is running on gasoline or on diesel. For diesel buses, the 31-foot vehicles were most popular. For gasoline-powered vehicles, 23-foot buses are the most popular. So same as the previous category, the larger vehicles are more likely to be diesel than gasoline. One of the goals of this project that I mentioned earlier was to investigate the cost implications for potential modifications of maintenance facilities to make them suitable for alternative fuel transit buses. While the transit agencies often share the existing diesel facilities with alternative fuels, this setup may not be ideal, and some operating alternative fuel vehicles may require modifications to transit maintenance facilities, including such things as better ventilation, improved explosion-proof electrical wiring, leak detection systems, fire suppression systems, and so forth. Many transit agencies also prefer to have fueling facility on site, and all these modifications obviously impose additional costs on the transit agencies to operate alternative fuel vehicles in their transit fleet. We will briefly go over some of the findings regarding the needed modifications and costs involved for different fuel types, but we will not spend too much time on that. We'll start with battery electric vehicles. The main consideration in vehicle maintenance of battery electric vehicles are related to handling batteries and high voltage electrical systems and cables on board of the bus. So therefore, these are the following requirements for battery electric maintenance facilities. Well, the garages need to conform to the fire requirements regarding handling the high voltage electrical wiring and equipment. Then they also recommend to have high ventilation rates for battery storage locations. The smoke heat detectors near the charging stations are also highly recommended. Then the fire detection system and fire suppression system need to be upgraded to be compatible with electrical fires. So just these are the standard things that we found in the literature that are recommended for battery electric vehicles. For biodiesel, since biodiesel is simply the diesel fuel produced from biological sources such as soybeans, vegetable oils, animal fats, and so forth, no modifications to maintenance facilities are really necessary. So biodiesel vehicles can use the same infrastructure that is used by regular diesel buses. Operating compressed natural gas vehicles typically require the improved ventilation rates. The one number that we always find in the literature is that the ventilation rate has to be at least 6 air exchanges per hour, so that it would be enough to disperse the potential leaks. Then same as before, the gas leak detection and fire suppression systems. Then roof ventilators are also recommended. So since natural gas is lighter than air, it will tend to accumulate below the ceiling in case of a leak. So therefore, these roof ventilators are highly recommended everywhere in the literature. Since there are no generally accepted codes and building standards for CNG garages, it's really complicated to estimate the cost of maintenance facilities modifications. So the numbers that are presented here are really not very precise. Well, the average cost that we found to modify a maintenance garage for CNG that we found in the literature is $600,000, but it may vary substantially depending on different circumstances. And I wanted to also point out that this is the pretty old data. This estimate is based on the FTA report, which was released in 1998. So things could have changed since then. Then also the average cost for CNG fueling station for typical 200 bus fleet is about $1.7 million, but once again can vary substantially depending on different factors. Ethanol. Ethanol is more volatile than diesel fuel. Therefore, all the design and maintenance facilities should include adequate ventilation to disperse the potential leaks. Then there's also recommendations of installing classified wiring at the elevations lower than 18 inches above the floor, because the ethanol is heavier than air, so it tends to stay close to the ground. In general, there are the same requirements as for the methanol, which we will talk about also in a minute. The average cost of modifying the maintenance garage for a typical 200 bus maintenance garage for ethanol vehicles was about $300,000. And once again, this is a pretty dated information. The fuel station conversion to ethanol may cost anywhere from $21,000 to $400,000. These are the different minimum and maximums that are found in the literature. So as you can see, there is a huge potential difference depending on different circumstances and factors. So this is a very uncertain. Hybrid electric vehicles. The maintenance of hybrid electric vehicles involves changing batteries approximately every 3 years. So therefore, the maintenance facilities may need to be upgraded with lifts and cranes to handle the replacement of batteries. The older lead acid batteries need to be reconditioned as well, and usually they need to be reconditioned every few months. The charging or conditioning equipment can cost a certain amount of money, which is not insignificant. Like, for example, the New York City Transit reported that this equipment cost them $50,000, but there is really not a lot of information on what's the average cost. That this is all based on just one report from one agency. Then the same requirements also apply to hybrid electric vehicles as to the previous as to the other alternative fuel vehicles that were previously discussed, such as improved ventilation, heat and smoke detectors, and additional safety equipment, and also some training that will be needed for maintenance staff to handle high voltage electrical systems on board of the bus. Hybrid buses use the same fuel and infrastructure as the regular diesel buses, so there's no fueling facility modification that will be needed to operate the fuel to operate and fuel the hybrid buses, so they can use the same fueling stations as diesel. Hydrogen fuel cell. Main requirements for hydrogen fuel cell are similar to the CNG vehicles. Hydrogen is much lighter than air and will tend to rise in the case of a leak and stay close to the ceiling. So ventilation strategy should take that property into account, providing for fast evacuation of gas below the ceiling. We also have this recommendation of gas leak sensors, explosion-proof wiring, improved ventilation. Basically the same thing as for CNG. Once again, the same ventilation rate requirement in excess of 6 air exchanges per hour. And we also found lots of recommendations to design the facilities in such a way so that they would direct the hydrogen leaks to the outside of the building. One suggestion is maybe use the movable hoods that's going to be above the buses that are parked or are under maintenance in the garage. Fuel cell buses are still very rare, and there's very little field data that's available on cost of maintenance facilities and maintenance facility modifications. So it was practically impossible to estimate how much that's going to cost. As for the fueling facilities, their cost will vary dramatically depending on whether hydrogen is stored on board of the vehicle in a compressed state or generated by an onboard reformer from other fuels. So there was also not possible to estimate how much that's going to cost because there could be drastic variations in costs. Liquefied natural gas. Well, in general, there are similar requirements as for CNG vehicles with some slight differences. Liquefied natural gas is produced from natural gas by cooling it to the point where it turns into a liquid state. So LNG leaks are slightly different from CNG. LNG vapor is initially colder and heavier than air, and it tends to stay close to the floor in case of a leak, and it rises only after it warms up to ambient temperature. Thus, it's recommended to install only explosion-proof electrical wiring and equipment in all maintenance facility areas at elevations less than 18 inches above the floor. And the rest of the requirements, as I said, are the same as for CNG. The median cost to modify the garage to make it suitable for liquefied natural gas that was found in the literature was about $600,000. The cost for the fueling facility, once again, we see a lot of variation in different reported costs, but the average cost that we saw for the LNG fueling station is about $2.5 million, and there's an additional $200,000 if you want to have the capability to fuel with both liquefied natural gas and compressed natural gas. Liquefied petroleum gas, the same as propane. The requirements for LPG are typical for the most gaseous fuels that are already discussed. So the explosion-proof wiring, the flammable gas detectors, the high rate of ventilation, and then so forth. Well, in addition, propane storage facilities must be located at certain minimum distance from buildings, streets, underground tanks, and so forth. The average cost to modify a typical maintenance garage for LPG was found to be about $300,000. Once again, this is a very dated information, so things could have changed since then. The average construction cost of an LPG fueling station that we found in the literature was about $700,000. And methanol is more volatile than diesel, so all modifications are related to that property of methanol. So the facilities should be designed to eliminate the ignition sources, the high rate of ventilation, as we discussed, as was relevant for other fuels, is going to be relevant for methanol as well. Well, in general, there are all the requirements are very similar to the ethanol vehicles that we already discussed. The average cost to modify a typical garage for methanol runs about $300,000, and the average cost to modify a fueling station to be able to fuel with methanol is about $400,000. Looking back at this interesting and I think very useful analysis, I would like to list some of the challenges that we faced. Some of those were already mentioned earlier in the presentation, but I will repeat them again. The greatest challenge in performing the analysis was related to the availability of data. We were also unable to establish the ongoing data collection and reporting, which we tried to get quarterly. Then there was also a limited number of alternative fuel vehicles and fixed route fleet. As we said, there was only 5%. Only 5% of the Florida transit fleet is alternative fuel vehicles. Then we also saw a low variety of alternative fuel vehicles. In fact, all of the alternative fuel vehicles were diesel hybrids. So we would like to see some variety there, so we could compare different technologies between each other, but unfortunately we could only get the information on hybrids. And then we also could not get the operating cost data for paratransit vehicles, and none of the paratransit vehicles that were reported in the TRIPS database were alternative fuel vehicles. So although we could get some of the data on the paratransit vehicles, there was none of those paratransit vehicles were alternative fuels. Finally, I would like to mention now the next steps that are related to the current analysis. FDOT saw some real value in continuing this analysis of tracking the cost of alternative fuel transit vehicles. So we're now involved in phase 2 of this project that just started this year, and provides for continuation of an ongoing data collection and analysis. This is going to be an 18-month effort. This time we plan to develop some new strategies to ensure periodic reporting by agencies. We're still debating, but we're thinking maybe to try to do a web-based reporting to make it easier for the agencies to report their data. We'll also try to work closer with the agencies to ensure their cooperation. In fact, today's presentation is the step in that direction. So we think that by informing the agencies about what we're doing and how we use the data, that we're not trying to compare the agency versus agency, will make them more willing to help us out with this data collection. So in fact, if there are transit agencies listening to this presentation, I would like to urge them to provide us with relevant data for the analysis. I believe this analysis is very useful. We're doing good things, and we can certainly help FDOT to make more educated decisions about future acquisition of these alternative fuel transit vehicles. And the more field data we are able to collect, the more useful and reliable the analysis will be. Well, this concludes today's presentation, and if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Alex. We appreciate the presentation. Some folks have submitted a couple of questions, but for those of you that haven't, please take a minute if you'd like to submit a question. We've got a few more minutes for the presentation today. I would again like to thank Florida DOT for their sponsorship of the project, the National Center for Transit Research for their sponsorship of the support of the project, and to those transit agencies within the state that have been providing us the data. And for those of you in agencies in Florida that haven't routinely contributed data, we'd encourage you, as Alex said, to do that. And folks outside the state, if you have these operating data, they can do nothing but help us build a better model and do more robust analysis. The first question I have has to do with CNG, and it says we are hearing a lot about CNG-powered vehicles these days. Do you have any results for CNG buses? As Alex indicated, as of the last time that we had received data, I guess the CNG fleet that was somewhat substantial in Florida, over in Orlando, had been replaced. There are some agencies, I know, for example, HART here in Tampa has applied for federal and state money to purchase CNG buses, and I think have in fact funded a fueling station, but we have no operating data on CNG in Florida at this moment. So I hope that answers your question. Alex, did you want to add anything on CNG?
No, you said it right. As I said during the presentation, the only data on alternative fuel vehicles that we got was for diesel hybrids. So that was it. We didn't have any operating cost data on CNG or LNG or any other alternative technologies.
Okay, thank you. The next question says, the efficiency differential seems low for hybrid electric buses versus diesel. I've seen claims of 6 to 7 mpg for new hybrid electric fuel size buses. Why do you think the data only show a 5% improvement in fuel efficiency? I think because, as Alex pointed out, we don't have a huge sample size, and although we are getting reports on 70% of the fixed route vehicles in the state that come from a handful of agencies, and I think that the maintenance practices, the tuning of the hybrid electric vehicles, and the duty cycle in which these buses are used have a lot to do with how much additional efficiency you can squeeze out of them. And again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but these are the reasons that we'd like to see a more of a variety of agencies reporting, so that we can then start to trace why some agencies are getting much higher fuel efficiency and others haven't. Some of it, I would also say, has to do with it being a relatively new technology. Although hybrid electric have been around for a while, in their latest versions, they're relatively new, and frankly, it takes agencies a little while to sort out the power settings and so forth, and to get the operators familiar with how to sort of exploit the technological advantage that the hybrid electric can give you. Let's see. Do you have another question there, Jennifer, that I maybe can't get to?
Yes.
Oh, I see them. I see them. Probably.
Okay, great.
Yeah, when comparing diesels versus hybrid, most of one agency's hybrids are very young, and the diesels are much older. Would it not be better to compare similar number of diesels? In other words, to normalize it for age. That's an excellent question and observation. Yeah, it would be better to do apples to apples. While one would expect that a newer bus would have lower maintenance costs, there's a lot of other externalities, including the new buses are clearly more complex. But on the other hand, a lot of the new buses and the data we're getting on the new buses, we think the maintenance cost is lower, perhaps because warranty work is not being captured in the maintenance cost, the parts and so forth, and labor that one will traditionally see. So this is why I think the department has asked us to try and create a sustainable effort so that over time, as the technology matures, we'll have that ability to compare more of an apples to apples kind of data. There's a question here: are there any plans to collect the cost for training mechanics on the new technologies? That's another good question, and it's not something that we've grappled with to date, but I'm going to duly note that and discuss that with our project manager, who has a keen interest in the area of the technician training of these things for these different alternatives, and see if there's some way that perhaps we could expand our reporting mechanism to try and capture some of those costs, because they clearly can certainly be significant, particularly if you're converting a significant piece of your fleet, as opposed to a lot of what we've seen with some of the smaller agencies is a handful of new units alternatively fueled in an acquisition. Last question has to do with the fuel efficiency differential, and might that have to do with the number of RTICs, articulated buses, that were in our sample size, and I would say that yes, that certainly could be, although the 5% efficiency was on the 40-foot bus comparison, so that Alex's figures of, I think it was 3.94 miles per gallon versus 4.05 or 6 was on the 40-foot bus. But when you roll all the data together, that there's no question that the RTIC, because it's a much larger unit carrying capacity much bigger, would have a lower efficiency rating for the vehicle. Well, again, I'd like to thank everyone for your participation, and Jennifer, if I could turn this over to you for the evaluation part of the webinar, I would truly appreciate it, and appreciate your assistance with us this afternoon.
Great, thank you, Steve. Yes, the evaluation should be on your screen now, so we would ask that you please give us your thoughts and feedback on today's webcast. We have applied for AICP credit for this webcast, and you'll receive an email notification once that has been approved. So once again, I'd like to thank Alex and Steve, and thank all of you for attending today's CUTR Webcast. We hope to see you in the future. Have a great afternoon.